Have you ever wondered about the origins of Memorial Day? Well, today I'm going to tell the story about formerly enslaved people in Charleston and the very first celebration of Memorial Day. You can reach out to me at onemichistory.com in the contacts page. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on my Buy Me Coffee and my Patreon page in the description below. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and support the YouTube channel. But without further ado, let's get started. Memorial Day celebrates and commemorates the brave soldiers that lost their lives during all American conflicts, but its roots are based in America's deadliest conflict, the Civil War. Born out of necessity due to the colossal amount of lives lost during the conflict, at least 600 to 800,000 Union and Confederate soldiers perished. To remember their lives, the first National Memorial Day was observed May 30th, 1868. The origins of Memorial Day, though, are hotly contested, with many cities in the United States each claiming to be the birthplace of the first celebration. Previously, the earliest annual commemoration was thought to be organized by women of the Civil War Hospital in Columbus, Mississippi. The ceremony was held in honor of fallen soldiers by laying flowers at their graves in April of 1866. But historians have long sought to shed light on freed African Americans in Charleston, South Carolina, who conducted an even earlier Memorial Day observance. This celebration would occur in 1865 and was dubbed Decoration Day. David Blight, a professor of American history at Yale University, was doing research on the Civil War in 1996 when he was given the opportunity to examine 2 boxes of unsorted material from Union veterans from Harvard's Houghton Library. He discovered a handwritten story detailing an 1865 march on a racetrack accompanied by a date referencing an article in the New York Tribune and a file labeled First Decoration Day. The racetrack in question was Washington Race Course and Jockey Club in Charleston, South Carolina. In the late stages of the Civil War, the Confederate Army repurposed the Washington Racetrack and Jockey Club, a luxurious country club and horse racing track in Charleston, South Carolina, to hold Union prisoners of war. The makeshift prison was located in an open-air field of the racetrack. Sadly, 250 Union captives would perish from disease and exposure while being held at the site, and their bodies were hastily buried in an unmarked mass grave. When Confederate soldiers evacuated Charleston, newly emancipated Black people remained in the badly damaged city, and one of the first things they did was honor fallen Union soldiers. Approximately 10 days leading up to the event, they exhumed a mass grave and reinterred the bodies in a new cemetery along a whitewashed fence that was inscribed with the words, "The Martyrs of the Racecourse," in black letters. May 1st, 1865, approximately 10,000 people attended a large-scale memorial gathering to honor the fallen Union soldiers. During this event, 3,000 children from the local Black schools marched around the racetrack holding roses and singing the Union hymn of John Brown's body. Reverends would lead the attendees in prayer, spirituals, and other religious activities during the event. Union officers, missionaries, and Black pastors also frequently delivered speeches to commemorate the fallen soldiers. The people at the memorial gathering sang numerous patriotic songs, including, and not limited to, "America, We Will Rally the Flag," and the Star Spangled Banner. To close out the day, later in the afternoon, 3 white and Black regiments from the Union Army marched around the graves in a choreographed drill, and this tribute was documented in both the Charleston Daily Courier and the New York Tribune. This Memorial Day observance, organized by freed enslaved people, was at least a year before any other U.S. city and 3 years before the national observance, making the gathering on that Charleston racetrack the earliest Memorial Day commemoration on record. In the wake of the American Civil War, by 1868, General John A. Logan of the Union Army directed the commemoration of Memorial Day on September 30th, urging Americans to honor the deceased combatants by decorating their graves with flowers. And by 1889, Memorial Day was a national holiday. White Charlestonians quickly forgot about the 1865 gathering at the racetrack by formerly enslaved people. Evidence of this event wouldn't appear again until 1916 correspondence between the United Daughters of the Confederacy chapter in New Orleans and their counterpart in Charleston, in which it was asked about a big parade of freed slaves on a horse track at the very end of the war. The Charleston office will respond that I regret that I am unable to gather any official information to answer this. Subsequently, in the late 1880s, the horse track and country club was torn down, and the remains of the Union soldiers were relocated to a more prestigious gravesite in Beaufort National Cemetery. In doing so, The story of the first Memorial Day was almost entirely forgotten, but not by the African Americans in Charleston, South Carolina. In a speech at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, David Blight discussed that he was doing a story about Memorial Day's origin. After his talk, an older Black woman would approach him. She would state, "You mean the story is true? I grew up in Charleston. My granddaddy used to tell stories of a parade at an old racetrack, but we never knew whether to believe him or not. You mean that's true?" MOVE was founded by John Africa in 1972 to introduce a communal organization that was based on anno-primitivism philosophy. These philosophies promoted a return to a non-civilized way of life through rejecting industrialization, large-scale organization, and technology. Completing with this ideology was the largely African-American group adoption of the revolutionary agenda akin to that of the Black Panthers, while also advocating for animal rights. The organization's guidelines were recorded by Donald Glassy, a social worker at the University of Pittsburgh, and implemented into the communal group. As a result, MOVE members wore their hair in dreadlocks and advocated for a return to a hunter-gatherer society, which expressed opposition to science, medicine, and technology. In 1977, Philadelphia PD obtained a court order requiring the eviction of John Africa and his followers from the property which they occupied in West Philadelphia. MOVE members offered to surrender their weapons to Philadelphia PD if members of their group who had been held in city jails were set free, but this offer was not accepted. In response, almost a year later, in August 8th of 1978, the Philadelphia PD held a standoff with the organization in which Officer James J. Ramp was killed and 16 others were injured. MOVE representatives denied responsibility for the death, claiming that Ramp had been facing the house and was killed by the fire of his fellow officers. But prosecutors alleged that MOVE members had fired the fatal shot and charged Debbie Sims Africa and 8 other MOVE members with collective responsibility for his death. In 1981, MOVE relocated to a row house at 6221 Ostrich Avenue in the Cobbs Creek area of West Philadelphia, resulting in numerous complaints from neighbors. In 1985, police issued arrest warrants for 4 MOVE occupants, accusing them of parole violations, contempt in court, illegal possession of firearms, and making terroristic threats. In response, May 13, 1985, over 500 police officers with the assistance of the city manager, Leo Brooks, attempted to clear the building and execute those warrants. After several warnings, the police attempted to move members out of the house by shutting off the water and the electricity. When that didn't work, Commissioner Gore J. Samber ordered that the compound be bombed. Lieutenant Frank Powell dropped 2 1.5-pound bombs made of a dynamite substitute called Tovarex, combined with 2 pounds of FBI supplied C4 on the roof of the house. This set the house on fire, which spread to the neighboring houses. 62 houses were destroyed, leaving 250 people without homes. Only 2 MOVE members survived. Birdie Africa and Ramona Africa managed to escape the house. The fire unalived over 11 people in the house, 6 adults and 5 children. The mayor, W. Wilson Goody, commissioned the Philadelphia Special Investigation Commission to investigate the bombing of the MOVE organization. After the commission's report that was released in March 1986, Mayor Goody gave a public apology in which no one from the city was criminally charged with the attack. Ramona Africa, the only surviving adult MOVE member, was charged and convicted of the charges of the riot and conspiracy and served 7 years in prison. Additionally, 3 lawsuits were filed against the city of Philadelphia, with the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit ruling in 1995 that the plaintiffs did not have the Fourth Amendment claim against the city, and the city did not have qualified immunity from liability. In 2005, a jury awarded a $12 million verdict against the city of Philadelphia. In 2020, the city of Philadelphia City Council passed a resolution that formally apologized for the MOVE bombing and established an annual day of observation, reflection, and commitment on May 13th. Thank you. I'm your host, Country Boy, and this has been One Mic History. And if you have questions or you just want to leave your comments, like I said, you can do so at onemichistory.com in the contact page. Thank you for listening, and peace.